The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We're going to hold off for just a minute. We've got some folks that are still getting logged into the webinar, so we're going to give them a chance to finish up that login process before we get started. We appreciate your patience, and we'll be back in just a moment. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. And this is on some new functionality that we have available now in DAT-MAIL called PostalOne Customer Data. I'm Monica Lundquist. I'm the Marketing and Training Specialist here at Windobook, and also with us today is Jeff Berlinghoff from our development group. Jeff is the manager of the Statements team. I'd like to go through just a few housekeeping items before we get started. And first of all, when you go to log into GoToWebinar, you are automatically placed into a mute mode, and that's just to help keep any background noise to a minimum. We will be taking questions during a Q&A session towards the end of the webinar. There's two ways that you can submit a question. One is to click on the raise hand icon, and that's located on the GoToWebinar console on your screen. That'll be our cue that you've got a question to ask, and then we'll unmute you during the Q&A session so you can ask your question. The other way that you can submit a question is to type your question into the questions area that's also located on the GoToWebinar console on your screen. Then click on the send button, and then we'll be able to read and respond to your question during the Q&A session. If you're using your computer speakers to access the audio for the webinar today rather than the phone, you may wish to close out of any unnecessary applications running on your computer, and that will help to optimize audio quality. And last housekeeping item, we are recording this webinar as we do all of our webinars. And we will, we won't be posting this to our website because it is a client-only webinar, but we will have that recording link available to anybody who would like to access it. All right, that takes care of our housekeeping items, so let's go ahead and get started. So what we're going to be talking about today is reviewing some of the cool new functionality that's now available in DAT-MAIL, and we'll start it off by discussing the importance of managing some of your critical customer data that's needed to process Mail.dat files. Then we'll compare the legacy customer data maintenance in DAT-MAIL with the new PostalOne customer data option. Then we'll turn it over to Jeff, and he will walk us through this new functionality, and then we'll open it up for that Q&A session. Among the many important data elements in your Mail.dat files is the identification information for your clients. PostalOne requires that this information be properly populated in the Mail.dat files that are submitted. And this includes information such as the customer registration identification numbers, or CRIDs, the mailer identification numbers, or MIDs, the postal permit that's used to pay for the mailing, and the Nonprofit Authorization number, or NPA, if the mailing is claiming nonprofit prices. Now, while this data is often populated in the Mail.dat file during the pre-sort process, sometimes this information just isn't known at the point where the pre-sort process takes place, or the data may be incorrect and need to be edited prior to submitting files to PostalOne. Now, maintaining this data can be somewhat of a challenge, particularly if you mail for a large number of clients. Now, to aid in this data maintenance effort, DAT-MAIL has long included the ability for users to maintain client data in tables, such as the client list and the permit list. You may be familiar with these browse screens that you see on the screen here. And this information is available not only in the previous table browse screens, but it's also available to users who use the statement generate functionality that's in DAT-MAIL. Now, while these options are certainly a great improvement over maintaining this data in hard copy or in a spreadsheet, there are still some issues that make it a little bit less than ideal. Accessing this data can be a little clunky, and it can require some user knowledge of clients and their identification data. It also requires some cross-referencing to ensure that there are not duplicates or that there's not conflicting information. And the biggest issue is that this data has always been manually entered, and it may not always be in sync with the data that's in PostalOne. Well, we have now introduced new functionality that makes those issues go away. It's called the PostalOne Customer Data option, and this new utility allows users to access their customer data based on previous jobs that have been uploaded to PostalOne. This information is much more reliable because it is coming from PostalOne data. The screens include a CRID browse, a MID browse, permit, and NPA browses. Now, we have not removed the legacy client and permit lists from DAT-MAIL, but we think that once you see how robust this data is and how easy it is to use, you will definitely want to start using this option. And now that we've explained a little bit about the reasons for this new utility, I'm going to be turning it over to Jeff to walk us through this great new option. Jeff is the manager of the statements team in our development group and oversaw the development of this new functionality. Now, I do need to make a quick disclaimer here. What Jeff will be showing you involves actual client data from PostalOne. And we feel it's important to inform you of this because we want to assure you that we are not sharing any confidential data. Any PostalOne user can search on CRID, MID, and permit data and access the very same data that you'll be seeing in this demonstration. So I'm going to go ahead and switch it over to Jeff. So Jeff, go ahead and show us how cool this new functionality is.
All right, thank you, Monica. Let me select the right thing to display here. Okay, I'm assuming you can see my screen.
Yes,
as Monica had mentioned, we've got the legacy client data that we have, we're probably all familiar with, especially those of our customers who are doing statement generate. We have this new feature called Mail Owner Sync, which is a feature of the Postal Web Connector. Postal Web Connector is the application that will shuttle Mail.dat files to PostalOne, and it has lots of little things that it will do. But when you enable the Mail Owner Sync option, it will interrogate the CRIDs and MIDs and NPAs that are used in your Mail.dat submissions and try to fetch data on those. And it will return that information to your DAT-MAIL SQL server in some tables that we have for storing this mail owner information. And that collection of data, which you saw on some of the previous screens that Monica was showing that had the MIDs and the CRIDs and the permit numbers, that's what we refer to as the PostalOne customer data. That's a copy of data that's originated from PostalOne that's stored on your server. And so that's kind of the first building block we had in what I'm about to show you. And when we enable this on DAT-MAIL, we're going to start here in a mode that we call release only. This would be for clients who are not doing statement generate, the release only mode. And on the advanced tab, we have use PostalOne customer data. And that allows us, when we are browsing, we've got a job open, when we see the mail owner CRID or MID here, this name is actually coming from the PostalOne customer data. That's not coming from your legacy data. When we go into the NPA update window and we hover your cursor over the CRID, it'll show you this name of the mail owner. That's coming from the PostalOne customer data. And you can select that and see this list by going to the mail owner CRID browse button, click this here, or the mail owner MID, or the NPA. It'll give you a different view of the same kind of data. And so here we're seeing this data that has been downloaded from PostalOne. And as we scroll through this list, you can see the related MIDs, the permits, and the NPA numbers. So it's kind of an interesting, kind of a neat system that brings all your data together, and you can select that and it'll populate your CRID into your NPA. And that feature itself has been around for the past few releases of DAT-MAIL. What I'm going to show you now is how we have extended this. And let's go back into the setup, because these changes here really are helpful to somebody who is doing statement generate. If you've ever been in the statement generate screen and you were quite certain you had your Mail.dat file prepared correctly, but yet the statement generate screen did not show you the client that you expected to be generating data for, and you scratch your head and say, why didn't it find my client? Well, the reason for that is you might have populated your Mail.dat correctly with the mail owner, MID, or CRID, but you very likely did not have that MID or CRID created in the legacy data side and related to your legacy client, your mail owner. And so it wasn't able to find it. And that's the kind of the driving force behind what we're doing here, is we're trying to make sure that this data is correct. Traditionally, the legacy client data has been manually entered, and it's very subject to somebody fat fingering something and messing it up. So let's go to return generate statements on. We'll enable this second part of the PostalOne customer data, is where we're interfacing this with the statement generate. I'm going to reopen the same job and show you what this will enable for us here. We still have the name here coming from PostalOne customer data. And also here, that's the same. But when we go into this browse, what you may notice, you may not notice, but I'm going to point it out to you, is we have added this additional line at the bottom. It gives us some information about this CRID in relation to our legacy data. So here we say CRID is associated with a window book client of City of Sunrise. And what this means is we have a legacy client called City of Sunrise with the same CRID. And so it has matched them up that way, but it only says it's associated because it's not fully related. We want the full relationship to be whoever is in charge of your client list to confirm, yes, these in fact are the same two entities, because somebody could have had an incorrect CRID in there, and we don't want to automatically update something without somebody confirming that. So that's one message that says CRID is associated with. I'm going to go up a couple of records, and we'll go to this one here, and this one has no message. That indicates this CRID does not exist in the legacy client data, or if it does, it's not related to a legacy client record. So there's nothing to match it up with. Let's go down one to the window book, and here that says the CRID is related. So that means that somebody has said, yes, this is in fact the same entity as the legacy CRID that we have entered. And we'll go through how those steps happen and what the benefits are. When we're on a related record, we have this little button that's enabled. We'll synchronize the legacy data with what's in the PostalOne customer data. I don't really anticipate people needing to manually synchronize. I'll explain that later, but it is there that you can force it to be updated from your PostalOne customer data. When we go to one that's associated with, we don't have the option to synchronize it because we haven't fully related it, but we do have this save icon where we can then choose to save this, which will complete the relationship between the records. And when I click this, the left-hand side of the screen is all information coming from the PostalOne customer data. So we've got the name, the address, the CRID, and the MID. On the right side of the screen, this is data that's coming from the legacy client record. We can, a couple of things will stand out here. One is this zip code, it's in red. On this side, it's bold. And the reason it's emphasized here is because the zip code is incorrect. They don't match. If we were to go ahead and relate this data, update the legacy data from PostalOne and build the relationship, it will correct the zip code, any other address information. This MID is in bold to let us know that it's going to be added to the legacy data. And so that's this information, when we sync a record, make sure that it's all the same. And so we could go ahead and hit update here. I could add this as a new legacy client record instead of choosing to to update these two records and link them. But since there's so much in common with each other, logic would say, yeah, we should go ahead and update and relate. But I'm going to go ahead and hit abort now because we want to use this example in another little bit later. So we have, I guess I should point out, we don't necessarily update the name. We allow you to do that. If we choose that, then it will go ahead and force the name to be updated. But I know on legacy data, people prefer to kind of refer to their clients as what they refer to them as, and so I'm not going to force you to do that. But let's go ahead and leave that value in here, and we'll go on with the next step in the test. We did not relate those records, but let's show you what happens when we go into statement generate. When we have an association, not a relationship, but an association. So if we were going to statement generate, it's going to go and see, okay, I have this CRID in legacy data, and it finds the same, or we'll look for the CRID in the PostalOne customer data, and if it finds a match, you'll see this window, and it says, okay, we have an option to relate them. It's the same window we just saw, and we can choose to update and link the data, or we can add it like we previously talked about. And I'm going to go ahead and choose to update it now. Okay, so now we get this window that we're all familiar with. I'm going to cancel statement generate, and I'm going to go in and go into statement generate again, because this time we have records that are related. This is what we would hope to see. We did not get prompted for that relate the records because they've been related. We only have to relate a PostalOne customer data with a legacy client record one time. Once we've made that relationship, we're not going to be prompted by that screen anymore. And what happened in the meantime, we didn't see this, but the legacy client data was also automatically synchronized from the PostalOne customer data. So if since the last time you used this legacy client record to do statement generate, if Window Book has detected a change at PostalOne, perhaps a new MID has been added, it would be pushed to your database. And so your PostalOne customer data would have that new MID or address information update or whatever, and then just by regenerating a statement, and it will automatically resync and keep all that in line for you. So if a MID comes in, it's going to be there. We still have the same options here on the update window, the statement generate window, where we can still choose a different client if we want. But what I do want to point out is a few things that change on the client update window when it's been related. The first thing is the address information is all in gray. It's grayed out. It's read only. So we will put it in gray to let you know you cannot change that. We can still go in and we can change the name. We can change the code like we're familiar with, or if we automatically added one and we didn't like that coding technique, it was something different than what we use in our environment, then we can still go in and change like we always could. But we can't change the address. You see the zip code has been updated like we expected it to. We can't change the CRID. We can't change the MID. That's all static because that value is now coming from the PostalOne customer data. And we're confident that it's going to match what PostalOne has. The other piece we have down here is this new entry called PWNID, and it's another field that's disabled. This is a PostalWeb.net identification value, a window book assigned value for this CRID. So we can keep things in sync. We know how to keep data related together. That's just kind of something that you'll see when we have records that are related. Okay, let me go ahead and cancel this. Let's do one more example. Let's go back into the MPA and let's choose a CRID that does not have a description at the bottom. That means we don't have this client linked or related or associated by a CRID in the legacy data. Let's go ahead and select that. And let's go into statement generate. And we are presented with this. We've got this new record that we can add as a new legacy client. if I knew that I had an Orange County record perhaps in my legacy data that did not have a CRID, I could still go in and find that and say, yeah, select it, and then relate them together. I'll then have the option to click the update button. But for now, let's go ahead and click it, add as a new legacy client. And now we're back to the statement generate window. And we have a new client record, Orange County Utilities. Let's show the legacy data. Let's go find Orange. If I can type Orange. There we go. Here we have a legacy record that has been created from that. All these values are going to be maintained for us henceforth. From the time that we've related them, we won't need to worry about that. Now, we recognize that perhaps that interface may not be the best way to maintain your MIDs and CRIDs by having to open up a job and go into the MPA browse, and then you can go through and select. So, and we also recognize the person who's doing statement generate may not be the person who should be making that decision to relate records. They may not be intimate enough with your client data. So we have this new menu option here called the PostalOne Customer Data Sync Tool. When this loads, we present you with this warning because somebody who is not really paying attention to what they're doing or aware of what they're doing could relate entities together that really shouldn't be related. And that could, you know, cause problems for your statement generate if things had been working for a particular client because it had the correct CRID or MID, and now you've related dissimilar things and you've broken those relationships. So we have this warning that we say, you know, this is really powerful tool. But once you acknowledge it, you're not going to see that warning anymore. So this sync tool, again, we have the same concept of on the left side, we try to keep the PostalOne customer data. On the right side, we keep the legacy data. But it's broken up into two groups of data. We've got a tab here for the related records and then a tab for the unrelated records. So let's start with the related records. And as we scroll through, we see on the left, we've got the addresses that are matching. Any MIDs or CRIDs that are in there should all be kept in sync. It's just kind of a confirmation. Yeah, we have these pieces in there, and that's a good sign. We have this sync highlighted button, which we have seen before. That'll force the legacy client data to be in sync with the PostalOne customer data if it got out. And we have a sync all button, which will run through everything on the list. I've intentionally forced a typo or change in the city name, so I can just demonstrate the sync all button runs through everything, makes it all updated. It's fine, force type again, and there we go. It's corrected the error. Just showing you that if you needed to make those kinds of corrections, you could, or you want to have some confidence, yes, it is in fact working, it'll go through and do that. We also have a remove relationship button that you can click if for some reason you wanted to break the relationship between these two entities. I do want to stress that when you remove a relationship, it does not restore any values that may have been there beforehand. Once you've related something and it removes the association to the MIDs and CRIDs that it believed were incorrect, clicking remove relationship does not restore those. And so it's kind of have to be certain that when you're joining pieces of data together that they're the correct entities. Let's go to the unrelated tab now. And here we have the same kind of information. On the left side, we've got the PostalOne customer data, but the lists are separate. Legacy data on the right that is not related, PostalOne customer data on the left that is not related. And we can go through this list. And ideally, you would want to go through and say, let's see, this one belongs with this one. And then let's see all the things that are highlighted in red, kind of makes you think, well, maybe those really don't belong together. These records here really probably aren't going to be the same. So we'll relate those. Now they're gone from this list. They'll show up on the related tab. Here they are. Back on the unrelated. When we're going through these things and looking for things to match up, of course you can do it manually and try to find it. However, we do have the CRIDs on the PostalOne customer data, and if you've got a CRID in your legacy data, if you've been pretty good about entering those pieces, we can try this Associate by CRID button, which will then try to locate the other record. And let's got both Charlotte, the zip codes are the same. They've got a little bit different in the address. We can say, yeah, that's probably the same entity. Let's go ahead and relate those, and it will update the new MID into this legacy data. Can do the same thing here and try to find the relationship here, and we see, oh, they've got the address here was the address of the other CRID. You know, you could say, well, that was obviously a typo. They shouldn't have had in this other legacy data, and you see that there also was an incorrect MID in the legacy data, but two new ones will be added if we relate those. So you can go through your list that way and start building your relationships and confidence that your data is going to be maintained for you automatically. Let's find another example here to look at. This one here, we got Associated by CRID on, and it's not finding in the legacy data the corresponding CRID on the legacy side. But we have this Get PostalOne Customer Data from the CRID button that we can click. I'm going to go ahead and click that. This is saying, okay, we confirmed you don't have that in your local data. So it's going to make a submission, and it's going to say to Postal Web Connector, which will talk to PostalWeb.net, a window book, I don't know the best term is, a process that we have running in the cloud that will go ahead and take care of the searching the data for it. If we've seen this CRID before, we'll turn around and return it within a couple of minutes back to your SQL server. If PostalWeb.net has not seen the MID or CRID before, it'll queue it up to be sent to PostalOne to get information on that. And then it will be returned and eventually get back to your system. I do know that this data was in PostalWeb.net, and so it is already returned. I can click the refresh button, and we'll see here, like magic, here we have this record, and we can relate them. And just like we went searching for a CRID, let's find a record where we don't have a CRID, but we have a MID. This one here does not have a CRID. We have a MID. So I can do the same thing. I can say, let's go and fetch information from PostalOne on this MID. And it will go out and it'll try to do the same thing. And here we have found that MID. And looking at the data, we see the address is very different, the city, the state, the zip is different. I wouldn't recommend that we would link these two records. I wouldn't relate them because I think perhaps that this MID is incorrect and should not be related. So I would recommend we don't go ahead and do that. But our hope is that some of these tools will help you keep your data more accurate, help get maintained automatically for you, help you with your statement generate time so you're not having to go looking and hunting for your clients, and hopefully it'll make you guys more productive. And that's my overview, Monica.
All right, thank you so much, Jeff. That is so cool. Very slick how to get that information and how quickly you can get it, and especially the side-by-side comparisons. I just think that's really spectacular. So this webinar has given you just a very quick sneak peek at this great new functionality in DAT-MAIL. And we just want to let you know that our software experts will help you every step of the way. If you decide to go ahead and move on with this option, and there is no additional charge for this, this is something that's incorporated in DAT-MAIL. It's one of the enhancements that have been added. And as Jeff showed you, you can set it up by going to your program setup and changing your settings to participate in that. But if you have any questions or need further information regarding this new utility, please do contact our support team, and you can do that by calling the 800 toll-free number, which is 800-477-3602. Or you can send an email to the tech support team, and that is techsupport@windowbook.com, and that will automatically open up a support ticket for you, and you can ask your questions or get some additional information about this new functionality in DAT-MAIL. Okay, so now, as we indicated at the beginning, we're going to open it up for any questions that you have on this material that we've presented today. And again, a couple quick reviews of how to do that. You can click on the raise hand icon, and then we'll unmute you so you can ask your question. Or you can type your question in and then click the send button, and then we'll read and respond to your question. So if you haven't done so already, go ahead and submit those questions or click on the raise hand icon. And while you're doing that, I'll go take a look and see what we've got out here. And we do indeed have a question already. Let's see. How do these functions work within a fully automated system? So I think what they're talking about is kind of when we do have some clients that are on what we call a lights out, where you import the Mail.dat files, submit the PostalOne release, and it's all done automated with AWAM and so forth. So I would say that this would work. You would need to do this independent of that, because you would want to make sure that your client lists and your permit lists have been updated. So I think you would want to do that as a separate function outside of your automated process. Would you agree with that, Jeff?
Yeah, yes. If you have a new client, you should be able to go into the list there and the unrelated records and be able to see, you know, the new ones that are in there, and you should be able to add them fairly easily to your list. I will say that when we have an automatic statement generate that's, you know, happening in AWAM or something, and it sees related records, it will still automatically resync the legacy from PostalOne customer data. That part is still automated, but we're really forcing new relationships to someone to visually inspect. So if you are currently doing a lights out kind of a statement generate option, that window, of course, is not going to pop up, and you won't see any of the new functionality in there. We've kind of pushed that aside until somebody can manually inspect and link the records together. Is that addressing the question?
Yeah, I think so, but let me follow up on that, because just to follow through on that. So let's say that I have some information, some legacy information in there, and if I were doing it outside of the automated system, that window would pop up, and I would be able to make my decision then what I wanted to do. Let's say there was some conflicting information. But now that I'm doing the automated system through AWAM, I'm not going to see that. So it's going to go ahead and process with the legacy data that I already have in there?
Correct.
Okay. Then I think we've got that answered. So you don't need to worry, in other words, you'll still be able to use your legacy data. It won't stop the process, and it won't make any changes to your data without your knowing it.
That's correct.
So you would, if you want to take advantage of this, and if you have an automated system, you would want to do this separately outside of that, but you can still go ahead with your automated processes.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, you'd probably want to go in periodically into the PostalOne customer data sync tool and review, you know, what may be in there, because you might start seeing new client records, new mail owner records on the PostalOne customer data side that you may not have a match for in the legacy data. Of course, I don't know how that would have matched up for statement generate, but that, yeah, that is a good question.
Okay, great. Thank you. Great question. Okay, here's another question. So what if you make a change and you decide that it really wasn't the change that you wanted, or it was not made correctly? Is there a way to undo it?
Yes, there was the remove relationship button on the PostalOne customer data sync tool, where you could find records that are related, and you could then choose to unrelate it.
Great, great. Thank you. Is there training available on this particular functionality? And the answer to that is yes. We have a number of things. This webinar is one of the reasons that we're reaching out to provide information. And again, we will have this recording available for people. So if you want a recording of this to share with people in your organization, you can send us an email to postalspecialist@windowbook.com, and we'll be happy to provide that link for you. We also have information that's available in the What's New area. Can you, if I put the share back to you, Jeff, can you kind of just quick show where that is in DAT-MAIL? That What's New button? Not to put you on the spot.
The What's New button. I'm not sure I've ever used the What's New button. I always read our internal release notes.
It's the binoculars there. Over a little bit.
I need better binoculars. I don't see binoculars.
Green binoculars next to the open. Oh, there you go.
My binoculars are black, so I was looking.
Oh, black. Okay. All right. So that connects you to the What's New documents that are on our website. And there's information in there on all of the enhancements, but anything that's in there that's new functionality-wise, you can get more information on there. So there's some additional training opportunities there, and there are some videos in some cases for some of that stuff. And then also, as I mentioned earlier, if you need any help with this, please do contact our tech support team. We want people to take advantage of these enhancements, and we want them to work properly for you and make sure that you understand them. So definitely contact us with either on the toll-free line or through email, and we'll be happy to set up some time to walk through this with you. Thanks, Jeff. And I even taught you something today, Jeff, where to get that What's New. All right, I think that is the extent of our questions. Let me just make sure I don't have any raised hands here, in case somebody wants to ask their question out loud. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for those questions. Those are great questions. And again, we want to take this opportunity to thank you for attending the webinar today. We know how busy everybody's schedules are, and we greatly appreciate that you spent some time with us today. And we hope that you enjoyed it and found it informative. And if you'd like more information regarding any of our automation solutions, please contact us for a free mailing optimization analysis. And we use your own Mail.dat files for that. And to take advantage of that, there's a little bit different phone number, 800-524-0380, or send us an email to sales@windowbook.com. And again, thank you, everybody, for attending today, and we look forward to seeing you in the near future on another webinar or at your mailing optimization analysis session. And again, thank you, Jeff, for showing us that new functionality in DAT-MAIL. We hope that you all will take advantage of that. Again, thanks everybody for attending. Enjoy the rest of your day and your weekend, and we'll see you next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.